Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Build Computers. We're doing some upgrades. This is my mate's PC, who has asked me to give it a bit of a refresh. He's a big Shenmue fan, and he's waiting in rapt trepidation for Shenmue 3. And he wants to make sure his PC is up to spec for it. He's not much of a PC gamer, he's more of an Xbox man. However, he does like to keep a functional gaming PC on the go, just for odd stuff that he wants to play that is PC only. So yeah, this is his build. Let's open it up and have a look inside. Ooh. Oh. So, that's a lot of dust. Let's go on the gore tour, shall we? I was expecting this, I'm not gonna lie. So when it comes to dust, in my experience, there are some times where you see a computer that is like 10 years old and you open it up and it looks like it was taken out of the box yesterday. It's that clean inside. And then there are some people where you leave their computer alone unattended for 6 weeks and it turns into this. It just depends. It depends on what room of the house it's in. It depends on whether it's sat on the floor or on a desk. It depends on just some houses are just naturally dusty because of pets and things like that. There's just so many factors, and there are certain occasions where, despite the fact that this computer doesn't take a whole lot of hammering, it just turns into this. Like, my own computer has never ever gotten this bad. Yeah, I've gone for a couple of years without dusting it out in the past. But yeah, this computer, I've seen it in for service a couple of times over in the previous years, and it always comes in looking like this every single time. So this is not necessarily neglect, it just happens. But the important thing is that if you realize that you're in a dusty house, you've got to get this sorted out, because this will burn stuff out. Luckily, nothing in here is broken. But yeah, we're going to give this thing a good thorough clean before we do anything. But early impressions, we've got a Zotac GTX 960 2GB. We've got either an i5 or an i7, but really early gen, like second. I think it's second gen. It might be third, but I don't think it is. I think we've got a second gen i5 or i7 in there. We've got some old DDR3, and we've got a 600 watt power supply, a hard drive, and a DVD drive. Oh, we've got an SSD in there as well. It looks like the last time we saw this thing, we put an SSD in it. That's nice. So I think the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this out the back and clean the whole thing out, just so I don't die of a medieval disease, because, you know, I hate it when that happens. That looks nicer, doesn't it? Right, let's take some of these bits out and we'll carry on talking about it. So this graphics card isn't actually that old, yeah, it's kind of a shame that we're retiring this because it's not that old, but unfortunately the 2GB 960 aged a little bit badly at this point. We weren't quite in time to put a 1060 in it. And annoyingly, the 2GB graphics cards have gone from being, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine, this is not fine anymore, kind of thing. 2 gigs of video RAM has just suddenly dropped off a cliff of being just not enough, where it's really hurting performance now. That's such a shame. Because as you can see, this is a modern looking graphics card and it's in great nick. But yeah, we'll find a use for it. We'll put it in a cheap gaming computer for a kid that we're doing on the cheap or something, make a bit of money back from that, offset the cost of the new parts, that kind of thing. We can do that. We'll be replacing that with an RX 570 that I'll tell you more about when it goes in. Let's take off this CPU cooler and see what chip is actually coming out of this, just so we can actually get a date on this thing. So I'll just take that fan out. A few bits of dust still clinging on. Whoop. We'll probably reuse this CPU cooler because it's better than the spare one that I have. As you can see, the air compressor does miss bits. You can just see in the shadow there. So if you really want to go to town on something, you do really need to disassemble it and clean it out with like a paintbrush or something like that. I have various selections of paintbrushes around just for dusting stuff out and getting into those cracks. But because a lot of this is coming out anyway, I'm not going to stress over that. Right, what's that CPU? I'm not sure. You know, I can't even make that out. I'll just try a bit of IPA on that chip just to see if I can bring up the silk screen on it, but it's a bit scratched where the CPU cooler has been making too heavy contact on it. No, I literally can't make it out. Let's see if we can figure it out. P5K Premium? What is that for? Whoa, what? That's a P35 chipset for DDR2? Oh, wow, look at that. Yeah. So this isn't an i-series. This is going to be like a Core 2 Quad or something like that. Damn, I thought he had like 2nd gen in here. This thing's much older than I thought it was. Fine. Well, he's going to thoroughly enjoy this upgrade then. Fine. It's a good thing I wasn't planning on replacing that anyway. Good. Let's keep going. Alright, that's our P5K Premium that came out. Very flash board in its day, when everyone went through a brief phase of putting heat pipe coolers on everything, which was pretty rad, to be honest. I kind of liked it, having the plumbing on there. However, yes, hopelessly out of date by now. Hopelessly out of date. So yeah, let's stick that to one side. Right, going in, we've got some second-hand kit for this one. My eagle-eyed fans who have seen me do live streams will know that this actually came out of one of my other friends' computers. And this is an i5 6600 non-K in a H110 board. So the motherboard isn't the strongest thing in the world. As you can see, it's a bit of a dinky little board, certainly compared to what came out. However, as far as cheap upgrades go, this was super cheap because mates rates. So between mates rates on that and a really cheap graphics card going in, that's how we're doing this upgrade super cheap for him. So yes, no remarks on it being a weedy motherboard. We know. Whatever. It'll do just fine. I'm going to clean up that old thermal paste on the CPU there and just make that look pretty again. There we go. Right, so there's our i5 there. And yeah, it's a 6600. So that is pretty good. That's ready to go. I'm going to mount up the CPU cooler on it before I put it into the computer, because we've got to put this backplate on it and stuff. And I'm trying to get into the habit CPU coolers are a lot easier to mount when they're outside, when the motherboard is out of the computer. I often try to put in the board as soon as humanly possible, but you're actually better off building up the motherboard before you put it in. And in addition to that, in this particular case the case doesn't have a window on the back of the motherboard tray, so we have to build it up first. Right, and we've hit a slight snag. I was about to start fitting the CPU cooler to this board when I suddenly realised that because this CPU cooler has just come off of what I assume is a Core 2 Quad, it doesn't fit because the fitment changed. Which is understandable, to be honest. It's just not something you expect. And of course, most of the time when you fit in CPU coolers, they have universal fit things, and these little the little pegs here will slide it in and out, so it's universal fit to any CPU, basically. However, this one is not. It's fixed. The cooler would have originally come with a couple of different options. However, we don't have any of that because this computer was built in probably 2007. However, as luck would have it, I have a spare CPU cooler. Not because I knew this was going to happen, but because I'm a computer shop and I keep spares. So we have a spare cooler. It's a bit ostentatious, but I got it for free with something. I don't know what. So here's one I unboxed earlier. Here's the CPU cooler we're going to put on it. So look, it's a MSI gaming series, and we're not going to see any of that because we're putting in a grotty old Antec 900, I think that case is. So let's get this thing fitted. I've got a... What the hell? Is this 2 fan? What? Oh my god, the logo lights up. I hate it already. Anyway, let's get the fittings out. It's well packaged, I'll give it that. Oh, look at that. I can put a black fascia on top of it as well, if one was so inclined. Yeah, that's alright. Okay. Right, so we're going to want that. What size is this CPU? Oh, no, we'll put that. We've got a nice Noctua fan here, which would technically fit. However, this fan is very old, so we'll put a new fan on it because Sod's Law says if I go, oh no, but the Noctua though, Noctua man, this is probably going to fail at some point because it's been clogged up with dust about 5 times. It's worth noting that across the bench from me, my friend Hugh has come to visit. We're recording another video in a minute, and he is looking at me with a pained expression as I say that I'm not putting the Noctua fan in it, because he's a Noctua fanboy. Okay, right, we've got our backplate fitted now. So universal fit backplate, that goes over the old one, and now we have some nice big standoffs that we screw the rest of the cooler onto. Okay, so we've got our big obnoxious CPU cooler refitted. It's going to light up and everything. It's going to look amazing. I don't know how much I like it, but it'll work. Anyway, we've also got a stick of 8 gigs of DDR4 going in. Only cheap stuff. Again, we're doing this on the cheap, like the budgie. So let's get that guy fitted. Single point hold down on the motherboard. I hate slots like that. And that motherboard is ready to go into a case. So I'm going to clear my desk so we can get the case back on the table And let's get that back in. Right, in goes our back panel. IO shield inserts. That doesn't fit very convincingly, but then I've never met an IO shield that does. Right, and now we can just drop in our mobo, which is going to look very small and weedy in this case. However, luckily there's no case window, so we don't really care. Align. Right. The face when 4 screws on your motherboard. And I have not blocked any ports. Good. There will be no grounding straps jammed into our USB 3 ports today, thank you, sir. Of course, the disadvantage of mounting your CPU cooler before putting in your motherboard is now I've got to reach around it to do everything. Which is actually not too bad on this one, but yeah. Sometimes it can be a pain in the ass. Right, now we've got to hook up our cables again, so we'll get the ATX cable plugged in straight away, just so that's out of the way. This bit's going to be quite straightforward because all the cables are kind of pre-routed. We're going to have quite an easy time for the rest of this build because we've got Windows 10 on an SSD, so as soon as I've plugged all this in, we're going to turn it on, and Windows is going to go, ah, and then be fine. So this motherboard is a little bit weird. Where the hell is the front panel on it? Is that it there? I think it is. Yeah, it is. Okay. It's a weird front panel. Oh, he's got a 3-pin power LED. Hands up in the comments who remembers those. This 3-pin power LED is the reason why modern power LEDs are on a split 2-pin arrangement. Because some motherboards had a 3-pin header and some had a 2-pin header. Because with the 3-pin header, you could have a bicolor LED in there that goes to a different color in sleep mode, which is why there was 3 and 2-pin headers, and why all modern cases have 2 individual pins, so you can plug it into either or. So yeah, this is an old case. That's the important thing. Right, hard drive LED is going to go there, and I'm actually going to have to split this one in order to get it to fit into the motherboard, because the motherboard does not have the 3-pin option on it. Which is quite unusual. I might just check the other pin header there. That might be a 3-pinner. The silk screen on the board isn't going to give me any help here. I could look up the manual, or I could chop the header in half. We're chopping it in half, boys, which is an entirely legitimate solution to this. So I'm going to get my side cutters, and I'm going to carefully chop that in half. The center pin is a blank pin, so I can literally just cut through that. There we go. Now we have individual pins, like a modern computer. Alright, front panel connected. Right, who else do we need? We need CPU power. So the top fan has a ruined bearing, so we're not plugging that in. I literally just caught it at just the right angle and it went... Wah! That solves that one. Well, the top fan on this case has got a knackered bearing in and is making some very unhappy noises when I spin the rotor, and the back fan plugs in using a Molex connector. I've got nicer fans than these lying around. I'm gonna take them out. Right, so we've swapped the we took the old CPU fan and mounted that at the back of the case because I didn't actually have any spare 120mm fans kicking around that I wanted to put in this. So we've just recycled this old CPU fan, which will work just fine, you know. I said I wasn't going to use it on there because it might fail, but it's in pretty good shape, to be honest. It's going to be all right. So yeah, and now I've just plugged in the USB. We'll plug in the audio as well. So we'll get that guy plugged in down there. And I don't really need to worry about the cable tidying in this because no window. So I'm not going to break my back routing these all the way around the edges carefully. Although actually I do need to just make sure that they clear that PCI Express slot because we don't want them to foul the graphics card, which is actually a real danger here. I think we'll be okay then. Right, let's unbox the new graphics card that's going in. Right, so we've got an RX 570 going in this. This is the 8GB version. I've shown RX 570s previously. I'm a big fan of this card at the moment. It more or less goes toe-to-toe with a 1060, except it's about 70 quid less. It's an astonishingly good value for money graphics card right now. So yeah, big fan of this. I previously used the Gigabyte version, which was quite a nice card. However, this time I thought, due to pricing and availability, I'd try the MSI one, and that's okay. I wish the Gigabyte had been in stock already because the Gigabyte has got more heat pipes on it, and it's got a functional backplate as well. Keyword being functional here. The Gigabyte's backplate does actually touch with thermal pads on the back of the card in key areas around memory and stuff like that. So it's actually worth it. But all the same, this is a very, very good value for money card. So you know, I'm not gonna lose sleep over that. So yeah, that's all right. Single 8-pin, it'll do just nicely. Let's get that guy in. There we go. That's in now. That's okay. And the fans are clear on the graphics card, which is what's important. And we can get that guy 6 + 2 pins of power. Right, there we go. That is good to go. So we'll quickly post-test that, and that'll do for this one. No, I lie. I can't bring myself to leave the cables like that. But that'll do for this session. I'm going to make sure this posts, and then we'll come back to this one tomorrow, I think. And we'll see if we can do something with those cables. I know it doesn't have a window, but just... I'm a YouTuber. We've got to make it look good. Okay, it lives. And the cooler lights up. Oh, you can't. Oh, I'm turning off the lights for that. There we go. Oh, look at it. It's beautiful. Very nice. Also, according to the capture, apparently this is a very old PC Specialist build, which I'm quite impressed by. It was well spec'd for a PC Specialist back when they didn't use cheap-ass mobos. Right, so as you can see, the amount of time it's taken me to turn the lights off and on again, and then go and then switch on my capture, it's already booted Windows back up. So this thing just needs to be connected to the internet to download drivers for that graphics card and stuff, and then it's good to go. So, right, we'll revisit the cables on that, and I'll just show you a couple of tricks on what we can do just to make that look like not that, basically. And then we'll tie this one up. Right. All right, these cables are no bueno. Let's sort them out. Roll the montage. Do you mind? Well, that was a lot tougher than I thought it would be. I'm not really thrilled with the result. As you can see, it's an incremental improvement. But man, there's nowhere to hide in this case. That sometimes you forget how far case design has come over the years, and then you try and build in an old case like this from the early noughties where cable tiding just wasn't a thing, and you suddenly realise it's just like there's no cable channels. There's no way of getting around the back of the case to get rid of the CPU cable. There's nowhere to hide anything. So yeah, that's as good as it's gonna get, I'm afraid. But hey, at least it's slightly better. We've tied the cables together just so nothing's flapping around, and yeah, it'll be fine. So this thing is all ready to go out now. So we've got new motherboard, CPU and RAM, replacement CPU cooler. We've got our nice RX 570 in there. That's going to be a huge improvement over the 962GB. And this thing already has an SSD in it. So between that and the uprated CPU, motherboard and RAM, it's going to be absolutely brilliant. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.